Hey,
We're
future.
here. Yay. So what I didn't share with you when we were getting ready to come on is that this is the ending of our second season. So this is special for myself. This is special for Dan because you are our last guest. Next week it'll just be Dan and I. So you are literally closing out season 2 for us. So thank you for giving that gift that you didn't even probably realize you were giving. And I know this is going to be a very special. It's going to be, you're so funny, Dan. This is going to be a special day. Okay. And as we are here talking today, there's so much. We could probably have 5 hours of conversations or a whole retreat, which you are famous for. And I think it's important for people to understand the centering of this and conversations that you and I have had privately of oftentimes we float around life in spaces not only with ourselves but with other individuals, and every individual has their own needs and wants. And oftentimes as individuals, when you the individual are saying a lot of yeses to other people because you love them, because you want to support them, because you believe in them, that also inadvertently, unconsciously is saying no to you, saying no to
Yeah.
your needs, possibly saying no to your wants, saying no to your dreams, saying no to your wellness, saying no to your being. So one of the posts that you wrote that really stood out and resonated and left an imprint on my heart was the one where you were saying, no more saying yes to everybody else and matching everybody's energy and then putting myself the last being or the last to do on my doing list. And I think that is probably a huge piece of your evolution and then of you pouring into your own wellness. But I am making those assumptions. So
hmm
I just want to pause so that you can give to the audience a little bit of who you are before you dive deep into giving us the undercurrent of why that even came about and how that came about. So I just want to say thank you for sharing space today. But importantly, what do you want everybody listening or replaying to know about you before we get into this conversation?
Yeah. So thank you for setting the stage so beautifully. And I'm so happy to be here with you and with Dan, who's like the voice of God in the background. He's just like doing his thing back there. Thank you, Dan. So I will say, if I had to think about just myself throughout my life, I feel like a lot of the decisions that I've made have really been based in fear. So I am adopted. I was adopted at 2 weeks old. My mother, I know her personally, and she had two other kids after me. So that really does impact you in a different sort of way. And then not really knowing the other sides of your family. And then when I did go over there to my biological family, I didn't feel like I belonged. And then just even coming out, as a queer person in high school, there was a lot of fear of, if I do this, who am I going to lose? Like, is my family going to disown me? What's going to happen? My father was very accepting, but my adoptive mother, rest her soul, was not initially. She was really like, I didn't raise you like this. So some of that fear came true, but I didn't necessarily lose my entire family. And I think that
Mhm.
I just learned over time that if you say yes to people, if you give them the things that they ask for, the things that they want, if you make them happy, then you don't have to deal with the stuff that comes
Yeah.
with if they're upset with you. And I just carried that around. Like when I made decisions in my relationships, when I made decisions in my friendships, for work, whatever. Like as I'm walking through the world, I am making decisions, or I was making decisions solely based in fear of, am I going to lose something? Am I going to lose someone? Am I going to lose everything? It was just pretty ridiculous. And I think just a lot of weight to continue to carry around. I'll say in 2020, I feel like everything changed. And I think everyone had that same sort of awakening of, oh shit, like there's so much going on around us. The world has stopped. We're at home. We got to sit with ourselves now to really think through what are the things that I need? How do I need to live differently? Because now the pandemic has shown us that a person can be here today and gone tomorrow. You can't work your life away. You can't just say, like, this is all I'm here for is to make money. Like,
Yeah.
I just can't live my life in that way anymore, in a space of, if I say something, if I do this or I do that, then I'm going to lose someone or something. I just have to show up as myself. And I just feel like it's been liberating and freeing to do that. And I've lost relationships. But I think that when I think back, those relationships really weren't mutually beneficial either. So I was carrying people around that I really didn't need. Although, like, saying no or walking away was hard initially, it got easier over time.
Mhm. Now, one of the things that I come to mind with is beauty in we want to appreciate other people and appreciate their needs. And so, why there was a fear in if I say no, what then? The one question that sits on my heart, because I've been that person too, is I am out there pleasing everybody and accommodating everybody else to not lose them. And I literally will tell people I was losing pieces of my soul doing that.
Yeah.
So you lose you. I know I lost me giving so much to other people all this time, and the reciprocity back. And it's not ever going to be 50-50, in moments of time, but you hope there would be some. It's how much do we then lose of ourselves? So, do you feel that you lost pieces of yourself doing that frequently and giving to others before 2020?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'll use, and no one knows this, like, maybe people that are like super close to me, but most people don't know this. So I'm gonna go down this hole. So married, I got married several years ago. And the woman that I married, we went to high school together. And I had a crush on her in high school. So it's like when I reconnected with her, she didn't know who I was. Like, she was just like, "Oh, Crystal, I don't I know who you are." I'm like, "Girl, I had a crush on you in high school." Like, it was like this love story where I'm like, I've had a crush on this person and known them for 20 years, or known of them for 20 years. And now I'm reconnecting with them. So when I reconnected with her, like, all the red flags, I didn't see them. I didn't see any of them because I was so in love with being in love, and so in love with this love story just coming true. And I allowed her to treat me in ways that today I wouldn't allow someone to treat me. I allowed her to talk to me in ways that no one who loves someone would do. Like, we went through so much, like, it was just a lot. And I overextended myself. I was always, like, at her beckoning call, literally. Like, if you think about a movie where someone's laying out their jacket over a puddle of water so the woman can walk over, like, that was me for her, but that was not reciprocated. And what happened in 2020 is that I got to a point where, and I didn't even realize that I was here. I didn't realize that I was on fire. My leader did. I was reporting to a Black woman at the time, and she looked at me one day and was like, "Are you okay?" And I was
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, I'm great."
Mhm.
Because you're walking around smiling and stuff. And she was like, "Are you sure?" And we just
Mhm.
started talking. She was like, "I need you to talk to my coach." And my coach became Christy Rutherford, who many of you have probably seen on LinkedIn. And I didn't know I was on fire. Honestly, I didn't. And I honestly thought it was just work related. I was like, "Oh, it's just my job. I work in DEI. It's too much. It's overwhelming. There's a lot going on in the world. I'm an empath, so I'm taking in all the energy of everyone else, trying to resolve everyone else's issues. It's work. That's what it
Mhm.
is." What she taught me is that it was me. It was
Yeah.
me. I didn't have any boundaries. I wasn't thinking about myself. I put everyone else first and put myself last. I was saying yes when I didn't want to say yes. And then I
Mhm.
resented people for it. So I was like walking around angry.
Mm.
after going through that coaching, I still was like, well, I'm showing it up at work differently. Like I'm good. Everything's good. But then what happened after that is my marriage fell apart
Mhm.
because I then realized that the way that I was showing up at work was the same way I was showing up in life,
Mm.
the same way I would, be quiet or like not say things at work. I was doing the same thing at home. And when I decided that I was going to start speaking up and saying no and like pushing back and challenging on the behavior, shit fell apart.
Mhm.
And it was devastating initially, where I was just like, oh my God, like people don't get married to get divorced. What is this? We've known each other over 20 years. How does this even work? To now feeling like that was the best decision that I could have ever made, was to walk away from my marriage, because I feel so much more free.
Yeah.
I feel so much more accepted with the new love in my life. I know what behaviors mean love versus the
Mm.
ones that don't. And I just feel like if I would have continued to stay in that relationship, I would have continued to lose myself and then also miss out on the love of my life today.
Mm. That's a beautiful story, right? There's beauty in falling apart is what I tell people.
Yeah.
There's beauty in surrendering, and as much as we wanna cling to, I remember there was this, I don't know if it was Instagram or it was a post, and I don't even remember where I saw it. And I don't know if the listeners or you believe in God or source or the universe or what beliefs in, but I think people will get the gist. So there was this picture of this little girl, and she was holding on to a beautiful teddy bear. And have you seen this one? And
Yes, I
God
have.
saying, "Here, let the teddy bear go. I have something for you." And
Yes.
literally behind her is this huge, gigantic teddy bear that she wouldn't even be able to fit in her room. And sometimes as humans, we cling to stuff because they're comfort, because it's routine, because we know what it is instead of understanding what the unknown could be. And we want to cling so hard to it that we don't realize the beautiful blessings, the
Yes.
love that could come to us if we just let that go and surrender.
Totally. I
So,
use that as an example all the time. It is
right?
the perfect example because you don't know. You don't
No.
know. So you're like, well, if I get rid of this thing, well, what's coming after it? Because the devil that you know is better than the one you don't, right? And I say that all the time and hear that all the time from other people, like when it comes to jobs, for example. But when you let it go, it's like, wow, there's so much more opportunity out there, so many more people out there to love you and treat you well and put you first. It's just the point of, are you willing to dive into the unknown or not?
Mhm. And you know what's funny is because we have all these sayings, like you just said, you know this devil, or the grass isn't always greener. We set it up as if all the sayings that we say, repeat, pass down in tradition, we are conditioning ourselves to literally stay in this comfort zone instead of
Yes.
saying failure is our first attempt in learning. And how much more can you learn if you put your path in a feeling of unknown, because that too will become common. You just have to step on the path for a few
Yeah.
moments in time. So much. There's so much. Okay, so here's my other question. What was the impact on your wellness? Because you were saying, so literally, I was in this relationship, and it then not only impacted my relationship, it was spilling into my job. And I'm sure other pieces of you in other spaces with other faces too. Inevitably, what I keep trying to remind people and speaking up loudly about is wellness. All of these things that is happening have an impact and create dis-ease in our body. And our body gives us signs, and yet we want to like be like, oh, I'm just not sleeping for no reason at all. It's the job, or I just can't eat, or I don't feel good. they're indicators from your own body and people want to blow them off all the time. So what, if any, did you have any indicators on your own wellness and health that was happening for a year, two, three, four, however long, that you recognize that maybe you didn't recognize when you should have recognized it?
Right. Absolutely. So shout out to Lisa and Liz because it felt like a great exhale. It
Right?
literally felt like I was like breathing for the first time because I wasn't fearful of losing her anymore because she
Yeah.
was already gone. So it's like, okay, how do I live my life without her? And then I
Yeah.
just started to realize, oh wow, like I don't have to think about this. Like I don't have to think about another person. I don't have to ask them what it is that they want. Like I'm able to really think about like what does Crystle want? What does Crystle need? What does Crystle love to do? I'm able to really do those things. But I will say that it's a journey because when
Mhm.
you're in relationships, whether it's work or with other people, you hide inside yourself over
Mhm.
time. Like if you're in like a toxic sort of environment or relationship, you dim your light. You decide not to say the things that you might normally say. You decide not to do the things that you might not normally do. So I feel like I'm still discovering myself, even, 2 years after my marriage has ended. And I had that conversation or that coaching with Christy. 2 years later, I'm still discovering new things about myself. But ultimately, I just feel much better. I feel freer. I feel lighter. I feel like I don't have as much on my mind. I'm not constantly cycling through like, what was the conversation? What could I have done differently? What do I think she should have said versus, what I said? Like, there's no more of that happening because
Mhm.
I'm okay with me. And I'm in a place where I feel like I'm in a healthy relationship with myself, with my partner, at work. I feel like I'm able to set those boundaries and just say, like, I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to show up
Yeah.
and do my best always, but I'm also going to do the things that bring me joy, that make me happy. And I'm going to set my boundaries and not cross them and not allow
Mm,
people to cross them.
that's nice. Now, is this why the DEI coach and the retreat happened? Was this a ignition to it all coming about then?
Kind of. I will say that I created the DEI coach for, thank you so much. So I created the DEI coach in the toxicity.
Mhm.
So it was actually created during that time where I was just like, okay, I'm tired of this job. I need to go out and do my own thing. And that's why I created it. But I think
Mhm.
that it evolved over time to become this opportunity for Black women to take time for joy, for ease, for sisterhood, etc.
Yeah.
After I went through the coaching, went through the divorce situation. And then after that, I actually found this retreat online through Noir. And it was like, Queen, get your life. And I was like, ooh, I need to get my life. Like, I need to go through some radical healing. And I'd never done anything like that before where I went on a trip with people that I didn't know. And it
Okay.
just so happened that the trip was all Black women. And the connections and community that was created in that short period of time, I just felt in my soul that it was something that Black women who particularly work in the DEI space, or maybe it's informal, maybe they lead a ERG, but we're
Yeah.
still taking on like a lot of other people's energy, a lot of the
Mhm.
things that are going on around us. We're going through stuff at work, we're going through stuff at home, we're going through stuff out in the world. Like it's just a lot of things that are happening around us. To take the time to pause, to care for ourselves, to build community with others, and to really think about like who we are, what brings us joy. That is actually how I got to the retreat portion of the
Mhm.
DEI coach. But it definitely was created probably out of a little of toxicity, but it was at first supposed to be around coaching new and aspiring DEI professionals on how to approach their work. But I've
Mhm.
moved away from that to focus more on ease and joy and self care.
Mm. That's nice. I think we need that. I try to always remind people, fill your bucket up with joy, or question yourself daily. How's your heart today? Are we on a treadmill of going so fast that you're not even pausing, savoring, and sitting with yourself to say, how am I?
Yeah.
What brought me happiness today? Am I centering ease, or do I feel like I have to keep running this at a sprint pace in a marathon that's decades long? So,
Yes.
it, many people that could give that and build the community, I think people need to just sit and say, okay, I don't need to be going so fast. I too am worthy and enough to center my own wellness, to center my healing, to center my joy, to center doing nothing and resting.
Yes.
Everybody does that. And
For
you do it in
sure.
a
Because
beautiful.
we've been too busy trying to save the world. We're trying to save the world. We're trying to save everybody. We're trying not to feel like or be perceived as we're not in the fight alongside everyone else. The thing is that we're all going to show up differently in this
Mhm.
work. Like when we think about like how do we decrease harm? How do we protect people, especially racialized and minoritized people? But we can't be all things to everybody. And that's what I preach at the retreat is you can't be a martyr. Like that doesn't have to be your ministry. There are other ways that you can contribute and lift people up. And if your way of lifting people up, my way of lifting people up is really helping Black women to pour back into themselves so they can continue the work and not continue it in a way that causes them to overstep any boundaries that they've set, to kill themselves in the process, trying to do
Mhm.
all the things. Like there's a way to do the work that doesn't cause you to lose yourself in it.
Right. Lose yourself, or I will often go through with people what you're doing, how much of your life is this taking off? This continuous stress, right? You might as well be in a prison cell with the
Yes,
days that you just ticked off. I'm not even joking. Like the pace in which you're doing, or what you're taking on, or what you're not saying no to, or what you're choosing to say yes to, or the people you're choosing to surround yourself with, or the feed that you've followed, it is all impacting your being. So at what point are you going to be like, yeah, my life is pretty priceless and I would like to live another month, another year, maybe another 5 years, but what I'm doing, taking account of a spring cleaning, this ain't working.
right. Exactly. Actually, Future, I have a question for you. And I have a question for you. So when I first saw you on LinkedIn, you were like activist.
Yep.
That was you. And whenever I saw your name, I knew you were going to be saying something about like oppression, microaggressions, racism. Like that was just who you were online and who I knew you as on LinkedIn. When did that shift for you? Because I don't know if I've heard your story of the shift.
Oof. Okay. Okay. So here's what people need to know. Okay. I'm going to try and make it quick because I know Dan's going to be like, time, future. So Dan, give me directions because I know a lot of times he's like, I don't have time to stay on past this time that you gave me. So Dan, how quick or long can I make this? He's probably like, you're putting me on the spot. Okay, I don't think he's there. He'll come back. Okay, so what people have to recognize me is I have served in education space at many different levels, most recently at the state level for over 2 decades.
Future, can
Okay,
you hear
in a
me now?
variety. Yes,
I'm not
yeah.
going to tell you to shorten anything with Crystal. I just prefer her talking, but that's no
Okay.
offense. I just talk to you all the time.
Okay. Okay. So here we go. Right? I love his candidness. So that's what people need to know about me. Okay. That's first and foremost. So I had been fighting this equity fight for years behind the scenes with the kids. Because another thing that people don't know about me is I sit in Wisconsin, which is the most inequitable state behind District of Columbia.
Mm.
I'm fighting daily for our kids to get equity because the numbers are atrocious for children who are of the global majority, not only in this state, but in our nation and in our world. Not with the academics only, it's with expulsions, it's with suspensions, it's with opportunities. So that's first. I was at a district level in a school district when 2020 happened. March 13th,
Mm-hmm.
it was. We were doing restorative practices, professional development district wide for all the staff of the district. Schools, obviously, we know 2020, March 13th, it was, everybody shut down. As a leadership team, we
Mm-hmm.
came back the following week. I told that leadership team because I was also the director of social emotional learning while also dealing with mental health throughout 20 years for students that I had served and adults, in the community. I told the leadership team, you mark my words, we are going to go into a mental health crisis. March 16th, 2020. My words were correct while also we dealing with mental health throughout 20 years for students that I had served and adults, in the community. I told the leadership team, you mark my words, we are going to go into a mental health crisis. March 16th, 2020. My words were correct while also we dealing with mental health throughout 20 years for students that I had. Okay. I don't know what happened, but it's okay.
Okay.
So
Now I can.
we as a team came back. That's what happened. So I immediately went to servitude. What can I do in this space? Because we don't know what's going to happen. But I knew in that moment of time, I am now sending kids home and families home that I serve and that I don't even know, that now have to be locked in their homes, even though our state in Wisconsin was saying safer at home. And I said, let's finish that sentence. Safer at home for who? Because I knew I
Mm-hmm.
was sending kids and families home locked with their abusers, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. That's not safer for me. And it wasn't going to be safer for a lot of people. And I knew that. I knew this was going to be a moment of test in time. And how could I give back to sustain people for a minute, a moment, an hour, a day, a week? So that was when I came on social media. I was not on any platform, pretty much. I think I had 500 followers at the beginning of 2020, but I said, I am going to put a quote out a week. If you go back to my first feeds, it was a quote. It was something that people could hold on to and maybe resonate and find themselves in, bring them some joy. So I constantly was centering on wellness because I knew we were
Mm-hmm.
going into a mental health crisis. Arbery had already pushed me over. Then the public lynching of George Floyd happened. So then I said, okay, now I'm going to come on and speak of what is happening, what I had been talking about behind the scenes for decades and
Yeah.
activating, educating, advocating for. When I came on, then LinkedIn happened. And LinkedIn saw something very different when 2020 happened. And then I saw how the system in the tech world was working to suppress or the pushback we were getting from the community.
Yeah.
So then we basically in a polite manner said, can we have a conversation with you because your algorithms are biased? And I know people are saying, but that's the algorithm. I hear you. And the algorithms are made and created by humans. So that was my big thing of fix the system. I'm always about systems work. How do we fix the system? Because just because that's the way it always is doesn't mean it has to be. So then I started obviously educating because that's what I do. One of my certificates is in curriculum instruction. This is what I have done for my career and my profession. So I kept coming on while also warning people about their wellness. We could be both and, right? Like we have to sit in our own self awareness while also preparing ourselves to be proactive and preventative for our own wellness and sustainability while also helping to build systems that are equitable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where mine has come from. And as we keep seeing an increase in the toll of humanity's mental health, I said, okay, I need to amplify what I first came on here doing anyway, because we
Yeah.
are walking around, people are not well right now. They're not. The data shows us, and we don't even have all the data. I know I did an article not that long ago. It was at the beginning of this, especially with our Black children. They're committing suicide at very high levels, and there is no predetermining things that people are seeing. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of stuff that is going on that needs to be addressed. And I am just asking people, how are you being proactive and preventative in regards to all of this while creating new systems? So you are correct. You did see me. While also all the time I would ask people to do certain things. I was always saying link out to link into yourself. I was always saying sit with yourself. I was
Yeah.
always putting illness in there because we can't have equity if we're dead.
Yeah. Absolutely.
A
So that,
future.
yes.
I just wanted to chime in real quick because I love what you gave. Two things I want to mention.
Yeah.
Crystle, if you really want to hear more about this, we did an episode with Aisha Joseph that Future talked all about that time around George Floyd. The other
Perfect.
thing that Future will not tell you is that around that time, that's when Future and I met. And that was around the time that Future became my mentor and friend. And trust me, it wasn't all peaches and cream at first. Uh, but Future wasn't just on LinkedIn. She wasn't on the clubhouse street. She was overextending herself to the nth degree. So basically, she wasn't giving herself the sanity and the sanctity of saying,
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of me. And it was more than one thing. I just want to point that out because Future is very good about focusing on one area, but as an outsider point of view, I saw all of it happening in real time, and we had
Mhm.
conversations during all this, and her mental health was not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Dan. And Future for sharing your story. I'm going to go back and listen to and watch that episode.
Yeah. So I hope that gives you more context, you know. Um, I'm passionate about being here and people being well. And this fight, you could lose yourself in it. And I want people to do the fight. I do, but not at the cost of themselves. I want a both and. I want both
Yeah.
and. And as the United States, you know, as our nation, we're awful. We are number one. Everybody wants to tell like, yeah, US and all these stuff. Go look at the data. We're number one in anxiety and depression. That's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It really
that's
is. I mean, there's so much going on around us. There is, if you walk away unscathed, then you are magical because it's heavy out here.
it is. It's heavy. People have I mean, look at we talked about this before. We've lost millions of people. Millions of people. I can't even
Mhm.
imagine. I sit as you as an empath too. Even me thinking about there were families that literally had to drop their spouse, their child, their aunt, their uncle, their loved one off at the door of a hospital and never see them again and
Yes.
couldn't even have a funeral. So if people
Yeah.
want to sit here and like put a cloak on and pretend there hasn't been layers and layers and layers of trauma that people are still dealing with and maybe didn't address and haven't healed through and that it's not impacting mental health and well-being, I am going to say then let's sit and have a conversation because I
Yeah.
know that's not true.
Yeah.
So that's why I will keep advocating for what are you doing for you? What are you doing for you?
I love your check-ins. Like you normally check in on me. And I said this in the beginning where I was like, it's a journey, you know. I'm still discovering things. There are times when I backslide and have like not the right mindset. Like it's going to happen. And I feel like you always pop in at that moment where it's like, how's your heart, Crystal? How are you doing? How are you taking care of yourself? And I'm like, okay, I got to think through these responses. What am I actually doing? So
Mm.
it's a good reminder to get those messages from you where you're checking in. So I really appreciate that from you.
You're welcome. And I want people to be whole. That's all I want.
Yeah.
I want people to be whole, you know?
Hmm.
That was a good question. Thank you for asking. Dan, what do you want to say? I hear you.
So I don't mean to chime in again, but like Crystle's a special guest for me. And
Mhm.
we talk about reframing things. Backsliding, I don't know, is the best word choice. And Crystal, I'm not trying to critique you, but I think that that's just part of our human journey. And
Mhm.
if we
Yeah.
hold ourselves and say, hey, we're backsliding, that's creating a negative narrative instead of realizing it's part of our just daily
Mhm.
grind. So, even though I sort of idolize you in a lot of regards, I'm still going to encourage you and those listening to figure out the ways that your everyday language could be reframed to put yourself in a better headspace.
Mhm.
Totally. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah. I accept that feedback and coaching.
Here's what I'm going to say to you, Dan. I hear you. Okay. And I'm going to go with science on this one. There's such thing called negativity bias. So we are literally our brains and our beings and our culture and society literally reinforces negativity. And even if you look at our dictionary, because there's been studies done on it, there are more negative words in our dictionary by a large percentage as opposed to positive words. And even though I say feelings aren't negative or positive, but a lot of people want to put them in the categories. So we'll put them in the categories where a lot of people do that. So there's more negative words. So that is literally a conditioning that we have to do with our own minds to say, I'm going to constantly change the narrative when the narrative of that, what you just did, and what many of us do, is literally all around us constantly. So to
Hmm.
be that's outside, always changing it is not the norm, is what I'm trying to say to you, Dan. I
It's
agree with
well, it's
but
it's not the norm future, but if we look at our education system, this is where it all falls apart because if we educate people on the true history, I mean, if we look at the conversations we've had with Sharita Washington and others, the constant need to validate themselves. But if we normalize the history of why this happens, if we start giving, instead of giving people grain heads and ham, we give them post-traumatic slave syndrome in school, then this is how we stop this negativity bias and start really promoting positive mental health. But I've talked more than I usually do. So
I love your talks. Yeah, I do. I agree. It impacts our soul. The words that we are constantly saying out loud or in our mind are inevitably going to impact our being in some form or shape. So I hope everybody could sit with their own self of what are the narratives that you're saying in your heart, in your mind, or out loud to other people to hear.
Yeah, totally. I'm reading the chat. Maisha says, be careful what you think because your thoughts control your life. That is so
Literally,
true. Yeah.
literally, right? You're spot on. You're spot on. So thank you for found that out, Aisha. Okay, so I know we have to wrap up. It's 11:11, I believe, 1:11, and I believe in numerology. I don't know what everybody's belief is, but that is important for me. So before we end, is there any other thoughts that you're saying, "Hey, I want people to remember to do this or this helped me," or last things that you want to share that will forever leave an imprint on people as they carry on their own individual journeys?
Yeah. So what I would say is put yourself first. I mean, that
Mm,
is what I would leave people with. And that
yeah.
means if you need to take PTO, if you need to go out on leave from work, if that's possible, if you need to make a different decision about where you work or who you're in relationship with, then you got to do that for you.
Mm,
Obviously, we want people to do the things that make sense for them in the moment. But if you know that you're in a place that is toxic, again, whether it's a, working relationship, family relationship, friendship, whatever,
mhm,
create a plan for moving on from that thing. Because just as Future mentioned in the beginning, there's always something better out there. Like, just because you feel comfortable in this space of toxicity because it's become comfortable and normalized for you, doesn't mean that that is where you should remain. You deserve better, you deserve more. And if you let those things go, there is obviously like a world of opportunity, love, peace, ease, joy waiting for you.
Yeah. And if you're just joining us, if you rewind this, you will hear Crystle's story to literally be living proof that if you let it go and if you step into the new journey that may be uncomfortable for a little bit, there's so much love, joy, peace, and ease that is coming to you, just like
Yeah.
it has in the world. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Okay, Dan, I think we're going to close it out. Sending you so much love. Wait until we close it out. Okay, you'll wait for 5 minutes so we could talk to you for a few minutes more. Thank you for sharing space with us this season, everyone. Dan and I will be on next week. And Crystle, thank you for being our last guest. And we so appreciate you. Ah, hey!
Haley, say hi.
Hey, there's a baby on
Hey,
camera.
bang, bang, skeet, skeet.
The baby ski.
Hey, so hey everyone. This is Speaker Spotlight.
Hi.
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 So she's looking at herself on the big screen.
Ducky.
Dookie Dookie. Haley, you want to do a Jello shot?
Yeah.
Like she literally takes the little things of Jello and then tries to shotgun them. But anyway, this is the Speaker Spotlight, everyone. This is an opportunity for you to see where we're gonna be next. So, Future, why don't you go first, and then I'll chime in.
Okay, so next week, I'm so excited. We have over 30 different countries being represented next week here in Wisconsin from students coming all over the globe, which is amazing for the World Affairs Seminar. And the topic for this year is climate change, which is near and dear to my heart because we need a planet. There is no planet B or plan B in regards to humanity. So we are going to be talking about climate change. I will be one of the keynotes during this time. So I'm just excited. You'll see more information about that. And I love talking to the future leaders. First week of August, there'll be school consulting. I will be doing 2 breakout sessions in regards to social emotional learning. So if you or your team are looking for more of that, we will be in Massachusetts, and there's the QR codes. Thanks so much, Dan. Passing it to you.
Hey, so say hi.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to be quick because I got my little toddler here with me. This is Haley, everyone. So, I went on pause from creating events for a long time, primarily to learn, and it gave me an opportunity to really upskill with the gracious collaboration with Future that has been life-changing for me in so many ways. And truly one of the best parts of my week is getting to spend time with Future because, how often do you get to spend... Thank you, sweetie. Do you get to spend time with your mentor and one of your best friends on a weekly basis once you have kids? It's rare, right? But with us being close to the end of the season, I started doing a newsletter series called the Corporate DEI Playbook, showing how I went from ADHD to making global change in one of the largest companies in the world. So along that line, I decided to get back into the event production space. And on July 14th, I'm producing my first event in nearly a year called the DEI Playbook. We have Sharita Washington, Heidi Barker, Chris Armstrong, who, if you don't know, he's from Veritas Culture, Eshawn Peterson. Yes, it is Haley. Lori Thibodeau, Fulgens Henry. I think I got everybody. We're going to be doing a 90-minute panel interview on July 14th. I'm promoting it like crazy. We're sponsored by the Ecamm Network, which is a streaming platform that we use here at Healing Our Future. we're sponsored by Opus Clips, which is a great AI tool to help you break down your videos into bite-sized pieces just by uploading. And we're working on more. So please make sure you're tuning in to that. I'm going to be leading that discussion, not necessarily participating in it, but it's going to be a great opportunity to really talk about the ins and outs of DEI and corporate. And you're going to get some really functional information. And if that goes well and I'm able to get more sponsors, don't press the spacebar, sweetie. Then we'll see what more events we do before we come back in September for season 3 of Healing Our Future. By the way, if you want to catch up on anything, we do have a YouTube channel. Not many people know about it. I'll be posting the link. It has all season 2 episodes. During the break, I'm going to be uploading season 1. So with no further ado, we're going to go into the outro because I don't want to keep Crystle waiting because, like, honestly,
So proud of you,
yeah,
Dan. Good job.
I want to work for Crystle, so I'm trying to like be really, really, really like, my nose is like just this close to being brown without it being brown. I'm really toting that line. But, but we'll see. Just do it, right? Okay. Without further ado, unless you have anything further to say, let's go into the outro.
Okay. See you next week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.